Good to go, Ryan?
Yep.
All right. All right, then. We've got the life of Buzz Lundeen, Victor Lundeen Jr. I'm excited to hear your story. You were born in 1936. We're going to get to hear all kinds of stories from a long, long life. Some stories about Victor Lundeen's and how the company came to be here as well. But I'm really, really excited to get into this. How you doing today?
Good, good. I'm glad to see you today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, a little bit of break from the normal.
Yes.
From the normal routine. So yeah, we're gonna get in and hopefully get you to share some really cool stories here. So I got you the little bit of an outline here in front of you. I want to start. We'll see if we can get through all these segments today. I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to start by touching on the family roots and heritage of the Lundeen name. So whatever you know about life before you were born, your parents, grandparents, family tree, whatever is relevant to you to share, we want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about my folks. I'm Buzz Lundeen, and my dad came to this country, was born in this country, but his parents were in Sweden and came over in around 1860s, and Fergus Falls was their destination, actually. There was forestry, there was logging to be done, and they didn't have a family yet, but at some point they decided that Fergus Falls wasn't the best place to be. They were supposed to be in Watertown because there was some free land over there. I think it was homesteading country. Anyway, they had loaded all their possessions, my grandpa and grandma, and maybe there were some kids, maybe a dog. And they headed out of town. They went to Fox Home in a covered caravan or a wagon. And when they went south of Fox Home, there weren't any paved roads, pretty much dirt roads, ruts. Anyway, they got south of Fox Home and they got mired up to the, way up there. They couldn't do anything. So they backed up. Somehow they got out of there and came back to Fergus Falls and decided that Fergus Falls was okay to stay at. So that was kind of why we're in Fergus Falls. My dad was born in 1898, and he started a business in 1914. And so, he wasn't very old. He was 15 years old and started the Victor Lundeen Company because originally it was Lundeen Publishing and a couple of other things. And he moved about 3 different places before he built this building that we're in now in 1919. He was 21 at the time.
Wow.
So he outgrew his other places. And it's kind of an interesting story about how he got into the printing business, because he was he was one of 5 kids, the youngest of 5 kids, and he sold newspapers and magazines door to door. He was in love with printed word, and he thought, I'm going to get into the printing business. So he saw an ad in the Fargo paper, I think it was, and he went up there to see if he could buy this printer who was trying to sell. And he found that the printer up there said, you don't want to buy this, you're too young, it's not a good business. Well, he bought it anyway. He bought presses and typefaces and paper, and I believe he spent $500 for it. Well, he had the money somewhere, he'd been industrious as a kid, and had it sent down to Fergus Falls on the Burlington Northern. I think it was a Great Northern in those days. And unloaded and set up a shop down there close to where the new FM Bank is. And that was his first stop. He was in the back end of some millinery place store or something.
So your the Lundeen family, did they originate then from Europe?
We call it Sweden, but
Sweden.
I had an interesting they do that DNA testing these days, genealogy, and I said Northern European. So I think Sweden and Northern Europe are all the same.
So, do you know then what generation it would have been that would have come over here? You said I think in the original interview I did with you, you said in the 1880s would have been like your great grandparents.
Yeah, yeah. In the 1880s, probably in the 1860s is when they really came. But they came right here to Fergus Falls. There were some other people that they knew that had come to Fergus Falls, and the word gets back to them somehow that it's a good place to live. So that's how they came to Fergus Falls. So that was my grandmother and grandfather. I never knew my grandfather, but I knew my grandmother. I split wood for her and put in coal in her furnace too.
Love that. So as far as the family history goes, there's a lot of you Lundeens out there. The family tree is pretty large.
Yes. Well, my dad had 5 siblings. And he, as I said, he started work in 1915, started his business. And between then and 1920s, he had all of those people, all of his older brothers and sisters working for him in one way or another. The cyclone came in 1919 and ruined a lot of Fergus Falls, but that's the year that he built his building, the first building that he built. And that was another year that was pretty impressive because he had published a book called Ottertail County and the World War. Now, this was World War I. They didn't go by one in those days, in the World War. Pictures and biographies of all the boys that were in the war. And so to make money out of it, he had to go sell the book. And they went all over the county, and he and his brother, one of his brothers, Bill, they were on this cyclone day in June, I forget the day, 19th probably, they were out in eastern Ottertail County selling the book to people that had kids in the service. And it was a commemorative book. It had pictures of everybody that was in there, a little history of the war. And we still have copies around in case you really want to buy one. But anyway, they got back to Fergus Falls, and they were stopped by the National Guard out southern by Minnesota Motor, and said, "You can't go into town. There's a cyclone. The place is a disaster." Well, they told them that they lived there, so they let them through. They let them go, and so they got into town, got home, and I think their homes were okay.
Huh.
But that was a little story. That was the same year that he built his building. So you can.
Did he build the building before or after the cyclone? Right
after the cyclone, okay. And it opened up in December that year, or November, December.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as the business, obviously you're a business guy. You have a long line of family history that's taken over the business or run the business, served as the role of president at times. But the values that have been passed down, sort of generational values, do anything come to mind?
Well,
there?
you know, the business has been we've been with family in the business for a long time. My dad started so early, but he had his the business became kind of bigger than when it started, because the state laws said that grain elevators and creameries and oil stations, they were probably beating the farmer a little bit by weights, and so they said you have to have numbered receipts for this stuff that the farmers bring in for their elevator, for their grains and the creamery, how much milk you're bringing in. You got to get a receipt back, so you have an honest figure that you're getting paid for. Well, the state legislatures all around here, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, they all passed laws like that. And so it was kind of maybe the Ottertail County Fair. You know, it was a lot of action. I got to get this thing figured out. How are we going to get some of this business? So, you know, they had to buy equipment so they could print this sort of thing, print forms that would be numbered, and they had to go sell the stuff so they could so the grain elevators and the creamery operators could obey the new laws.
So just to kind of sum up like the startup of Victor Lundeen, I guess, and the scaling of it, do you want to just kind of tell that? Because you were born in 1936.
Yeah.
So what happened with the business from the time it was established up until you were born in the 30s?
Well, I think the business had already was on its way to being a business that sold merchandise and business forms throughout most of Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and into Montana. And there were a lot of ag businesses, and it was kind of a natural thing for my dad to follow into, So by the time I was born, most of these things were set in place. We had salesmen out in the territory getting orders, bringing it in. The phone didn't ring very much in those days, but people saw people and they ordered, and we knew what they needed, and they said, okay. We solved the problem for them by going out, being in front of them, saying what you need, and then we delivered. So that's kind of the way it was when I was born.
So your family, were you the youngest? Were you born into the family? You were the youngest of however many siblings?
Yes.
How many siblings?
Yeah, I was the youngest of 5 kids. My dad didn't get married until 1927, and I was the youngest, born in 36. So we all grew up working in the business. We were expected to go on evenings or after school or Saturdays or summers. We were expected to work, whether we were working in the retail store or in the print shop. My job early on was making scratch pads. You got to get the scraps of paper from the big jobs, pad them and put them into pads of about 100 sheets. And yeah, most anybody can do that, even me.
And that was like you were 8 years old when you started making those little
scratch I'm sure
pads.
That's probably about true, 8 to 10, yeah. And my brothers and sisters all did that before me. So we all grew up there.
They knew what they were doing. They like multiply and build a whole generation of people to run the operation for you.
Yeah, family business.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Depression through there, how was the business affected? How was Fergus affected? Any of that through the early 30s before you were born? Did your parents talk?
Well, yeah, the Depression came and things were not good, but people still needed to get form, so we kept going. There was also we called it the dirty 30s, the dry 30s. It didn't rain for years, a couple of years, I think. Herbert Krauss wrote a book called Wind Without Rain. He was a local author and published nationwide. But Wind Without Rain, you got wind, cloudy, but no rain. So there was no crops to speak of right around here. And other states were not all quite the same, but I think in North Dakota they probably were pretty dry too. So, but anyway, we seem to have gotten by that. And then the other big thing that happened was World War II came. And my dad had quite a crew working here. In our print shop, we must have had 15 guys or gals. And 5 of those guys got drafted or went into service. And so he was working shorthanded. But when the war was over, he hired them all back. It was pretty nice.
Good.
Pretty nice to be able to do that. But the business was, we had salesmen out. My dad had salesmen out in North Dakota and South Dakota. And his brother, Bill, who I mentioned, I think, before, had been covering South Dakota with these new scale tickets and weigh tickets and checks. And he did a grand job, but then he was getting older, and so pretty soon It was in 1963. Can we jump to that year?
Sure. I mean, I feel like we're going to miss out on a whole lot if we jump from the 30s to 63, but
Well, I don't know. There was a World War II in there, in the 40s.
yeah, we can jump around a little bit. I want to hear more about your childhood as well, but go ahead and talk about, I don't want to get you off track.
If we want to talk about younger days when I went to grade school and that sort of thing, what did we do? We went to Lincoln School, which is right near Lake Alice. You remember that Lincoln School? No,
I don't remember that.
You guys don't remember that. Well, it was on Union Avenue and just up from Lake Alice. And most of us guys and girls would bring our skates to school, and we just jump over to Lake Alice to the warming house where we skated for the next hour and a half before supper. Yeah, that was a pretty nice thing to do. But we also, when it wasn't skating time, when we maybe had to play basketball or something, we had to go to McKinley School for that. Lincoln School didn't have a gym, so we went to McKinley to play ball.
And you said how many siblings you had?
Well, yeah, there were 5 of us too.
Okay.
My dad had 5. There were 5 in his family, but there were 5 in my dad's family, and I was the youngest. So we all went to school. My dad went through 8th grade. That was pretty common in those days, and that's all the education he got.
And then started up the company and said he married you. Do you know the story of him meeting your mom?
Oh, well, I do know that too. My dad met my mom on Fish Lake. Now, Fish Lake today isn't what it used to be. Fish Lake in those days was a good lake to swim in, fish in, and have a cottage at. And my dad had a cottage out there. And that he got in early, mid-20s, I suppose. Business was booming. Those were the roaring 20s, right? Anyway, he bought a house out there, a cabin. And then my mother, who grew up in near Goodhue, Minnesota, down by Rochester, her oldest sister had married a doctor from Battle Lake, Dr. Hogan, and he had a cabin on Fish Lake. So my dad and she met there, and that was the start of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. And then in your childhood, you mentioned that you golf. You kind of golfed a little bit.
Well,
enough.
my dad golfed, and he used to golf on the Riverside Links, which is right where Hillcrest Lutheran Academy is, right along the river. There were 9 holes. Okay. And it wasn't until 1933, or anyway, part of the WPA built the Pebble Lake Golf Course, and the fence, the rock stone wall, they built that, but they built the course. And that's where I caddied for my dad. And if I was really lucky, he'd let me hit a ball on the par 3s. That's how you get started and you get hooked. So yeah, I played golf for the rest of my life. This year, all I could do was hit a couple balls on the range. But
yeah, and any good fishing stories? I know you said you fished a lot as a kid as well, or throughout your.
Yeah, well, we had Fish Lake was a good place at one time, but some farmer drained the lake. He built anyway, he didn't think he was going to drain the lake, but he did drain the lake. Became about 15 to 20 feet lower than it used to be. So it wasn't much of a lake to be on. So some people who were on that lake in the winter dragged their cabins out to Otter Tail Lake. My dad didn't. In the 40s, can I jump to the 40s? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting
in the 40s, they rented a place on Otter Tail Lake for a couple of years, and then they bought it. And that's where we started to fish.
Yeah.
And the one thing I remember once, and I hope this doesn't go very far, because one day we caught 64 walleyes. I don't know how many times we went out and back, but that was too many fish. You hardly clean 64 walleyes. But that's a big memory of, of fishing. It was a windy day, and then we knew the spot. We found the spot. You could go back to the spot. We all went out.
I love that. So, did you end up meeting your wife in high school, college?
Oh, well,
Or high
my
school
wife,
stories?
Ann, is a South Dakotan. She's from Aberdeen. And both of us ended up at McAllister College going to after high school.
Okay.
And so we met there. I was a lot older than she. I was 3 years older. And so I think I was a senior when she came to school. But anyway, I was kind of a gym rat. And I was always over at the gym. And back in those days, you know, you had to go to church on Sundays, and Thursdays probably was a prayer thing. And you also had to make up gym if you missed gym. So my wife had missed gym, and so she was making it up one night, and I was there playing volleyball. She was on the other side of the net, and of course I would spike it at her. Anyway, she was the cutest thing there. And we ended up marrying about 3 years later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that. So, what went into your high school years, I guess, that kind of led to your decision to go to college where you did, or do what you did?
Well, my dad, you know, went through 8th grade, and my mother, she got a degree in secretarial at what's now the Hillcrest. It used to be called Secretarial College or something like that. She was a great musician, his voice and piano, and anyway, she went to school, but my dad didn't, but he thought everybody ought to go to school. Everybody ought to go to college. Everybody did. My oldest sister went to the University of Chicago. My brother and sister went to Carleton, and another brother went to Amherst. So I went to McAllister, St. Paul, and that's where I met Ann.
Gotcha. Did you have any other, I know obviously your family, a lot of mentors. Did you have any other like mentors or people that stood out to you as really impactful throughout that young adulthood, whether it be high school or college, teachers?
Well, at school, we always had, we thought the teachers were pretty important, and except for the typing teacher, which some of the guys made her cry in school. That wasn't too much fun. But she got us all to type, learn the keyboard and all that. But most of the high school teachers, I can't say that they were inspiring, but the college teachers were all inspiring and told us to do well, and we did well, and all of us got our degrees. I got a degree there at McAllister and went on to get an MBA at the University of Chicago, and then after that came back to Fergus Falls.
Okay. So you never, in that time, what was your degree in?
Well, business administration. And all the time I was going to school, I was also a gym rat. I told you that.
Yeah.
You know, I played racquetball, handball, squash.
Weren't you pretty competitive in handball?
Oh, we've got to talk about handball, do you? At the University of Chicago, they had intramurals for the graduate students. And, I played golf, I played handball, we called it. Yeah, I was probably second best then. That's where I learned the word second best. But I was the best golfer in the school there. But there were a lot of eggheads, so they didn't know much about golf. And what else did I do? I played all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that decision to come back home, was that pretty much set after college?
Well, it was, but you still had to go through the act of asking your father if he could go back to the business. So, and of course he'd groomed me to do this all his life. He would take me with him to business expos where they showed golf graphic art printing equipment, and that was before I even graduated. And he also took me to grain conventions in the Minneapolis. So I learned a lot about what we do.
So your wife moved back with you after college?
Well, not quite. I got through at the University of Chicago in 1960, and I came back and right away I got into the Air National Guard out of Fargo and went to basic training down in Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. But then for the next 6 years, I spent every weekend in Fargo at the Air National Guard doing my service. Well, in the meantime, this was 1960 when I went into the service and when I came back from college, graduate school, and my wife and I, or my girlfriend and I, got married in 61. So, where is that in life? Quite a while ago.
Yeah.
That's when I came back to work too. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you ever have like active duty military service?
No, and then we were never called up.
Okay.
We were always thought we might, but in Fargo, the planes they flew weren't top-notch planes, so we knew they'd never get there, but they might need support staff or something, but we never got called up.
So obviously moving back was a big decision. That was probably, come back. I don't know if there was anything else weighing on you to do at the time besides come back home and work for the family business. But when you think about those like defining decisions that you made in your young adulthood, does anything else stand out to you?
When I graduated from college or from the University of Chicago, I really didn't have any expectations to go anywhere except come back to Fergus Falls. I mean, you thought about maybe you should try to find a job in Chicago, but it didn't seem to appeal to me. And so I took the easy route, but it might have been the hard route too. Coming into a family business, my brother was already there working, and so.
Your brother, which
Ed,
one was that?
My brother, Ed, my
Edward.
oldest brother,
Yep.
He was back here already.
Yep. So how did the roles work out then in that time when you came back? What was the family dynamic like in the business?
Yeah.
Was your dad still actively running the business at the time?
Yeah, my dad was running the business. He would take a little advice from my brother Ed and do a few things that he suggested. But Ed was basically, he was in charge of selling to some of the big accounts in Fergus Falls, like the power company, the hospital, and places like that. And also, as far as the product mix, he was more keen on the office products that we carried. In those days, there was a lot more use of office products. I mean, they weren't all computerized then. Everybody they used fountain pens. My dad used to sell gallons of ink for fountain pens for people to use, and blotters were a big thing. But anyway, when I got back, basically I was working in the store, learning retail, and filling in the print shop where I might be needed, short-staffed, and not printing, but I would be shipping, or I would be typesetting, doing certain things that were short, and it didn't have enough people at work do that.
So then, like, your career path or your trajectory, you watch, obviously, I know your brother Ed ended up being the president of the company before you
Well,
took
he didn't
over.
actually, but
No, okay.
That's all right. You can be I mentioned my uncle Bill Lundeen, who was
Okay.
traveling, and in 1963 he died. And that was kind of the turning point when we needed to cover some territory, and so we had our other salesman move into some of his territory, and I took over maybe a 90-mile radius of Fergus Falls. And I didn't have to do that all the time, but I was, once a week I would be out in the territory, calling on customers, bringing in orders, learning what customers use and how they use it. And it was a pretty good experience for me. You kind of hesitated to do it at the time, but in retrospect, it was really a learning experience that really helped me a lot. And so after I did that for about 15 years, and then we hired other salesmen to cover that territory.
So what was the state of the company then when your dad left, or how did that come to be, that transition?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was about it. In 1972, let's see, we incorporated, and we got to have more than just my dad as an officer. So I became the president at that time, but my dad was a chairman, and my brother was vice president, and we got along just fine. You know, there wasn't any boundaries that we really were worried about.
What year was that? You said
72, we became incorporated. So that was, and then my dad died in 85, and then my brother and I just took it over and ran it the way we thought he had already groomed us to do.
Was your dad active with the company up until he died in the 80s?
Well, he was not really very active, but I remember when in 1980, we're right now we're in the bank boardroom, and the bank boardroom was the bank was right next door to our store, and we bought the bank, and we wondered. I mean, Dad was involved in that decision, and we wondered about the sign up high on the roof. We said, "What are we going to do? Take that down?" And he said, "No, you're just going to put Victor Lundeen Company up there." And that's what we did. If you take a look at the sign out there, you'll look at it. Look at the high one. Yeah. So practical decisions, he knew what to do.
So you were in your late 30s when you took over as president of the company, and you were in that role for how long?
Well, until Paul took it over.
Right.
I don't know when that was. It's somewhere in the 2005 or something.
Yeah. So let's talk about your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many?
Well, we have, Ann and I have 4 kids, and they all did well. They were all born basically in the 60s, the early 70s, and our oldest daughter, she went to McAllister College too. She wanted to look at some other colleges, and I took her around to Wisconsin and Iowa and Illinois. And I said, "You don't want to go to McAllister," but that's what she chose. And she went on to get a degree in library science down in Iowa. She never did use that as an employment, but she has 3 kids. Ingrid is her daughter, and she works here in the store, and she's a sweetheart. You know her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Julia was our second daughter, and she went to Hamlin. That was in St. Paul too. And she got a degree in music and piano and French horn. She was excellent at both. However, she went to Washington, D.C. and opened a studio for personal training. And then from there, she went to New York and did the same thing and had successful gyms, small gyms, personal training gyms. So she did well, but she received the blessed news of having MS, and she currently lives with us, and she's doing fine.
Wow.
And then there's Paul, who also went to McAllister College, played a little soccer one year, and until they drafted all the guys from Boston who grew up playing soccer when they were kids. You didn't learn to play soccer in Fergus Falls in those days until maybe you were a freshman in high school. So, and then Paul went on to get an MBA at the University of Rochester in Upper New York, Rochester, New York. And he came back with the same kind of degree I had. He kind of knew he was coming back too, because he knew I couldn't handle it alone. And then our youngest daughter, Catherine, she went to St. Thomas. That's another St. Paul school. So they all went to St. Paul, and then she didn't go to graduate school, but she traveled in Europe for a while with her friends, and they worked for Kimberly-Clark and big companies over there. And because her roommate was the president of Kimberly-Clark. They didn't know what to do. Anyway, she ended up going to Los Angeles and opened up a wonderful little gift store. And they've been there for 20 years and been awarded the best gift store in LA. So she's done well.
So you get to have your family. You still get to have your family close. I love that. So,
She called the store Lundeen's out there. So some people go out there and check it out. So if you're ever out there, Culver City is the suburb.
yeah. So going back to the business side of things, can you think of any like challenges that really stood out in those years, those early years that you took over as the president of the company?
The company has seen a lot of evolution. And to begin with, there was movable type. Then they became hot metal, which like a linotype, like a newspaper, used metal. And then, so all our presses were that way. And then it turned to offset because that was faster and cleaner, and newspapers did the same thing. And so we had to transition all those ways to produce forms and other printed goods. But printed forms was basically what we did, printed forms and checks. We were early on making checks, and there was a revolution in the check business in the 50s. I was involved with my dad when we got a lot of checks figured out and how to do it, because there's sensitive things at the bottom of those checks to be able to read, and it wasn't easy to print to get it to be able to be read through those sorters. So, but we solved that problem. And then around 2000, of course, the electronic age came, and digital printing started to become the answer. So by now, all we are is digital printers. Our offset presses are stand idle or are waiting to be bought. They're on the market, but we still have collating to do. We print things and collate them, and maybe perforate them, maybe coil bind them, maybe put them into a book form. There's a lot of ways that we still need our bindery staff. If you're in the store, you hear the big crunch from the paper cutter, and you probably hear the punch for the putting holes in the paper.
So, obviously, the Victor Lundeen Company has had huge impact on Fergus Falls throughout the year, community involvement, some other things. Do you want to touch on some of the things that stood out from your perspective on the legacy of Victor Lundeen, some of the impact you guys were able to make in our community throughout the years, or some organizations that you worked with?
We've been busy with all kinds of events and building things in Fergus Falls. The family has been involved in, I think, of the Salvation Army building programs that they've had, the YMCA building programs, the Center for the Arts program, and Pioneer Care. We've taken a big share of a lot of that sort of thing. On the fundraising committees, we're usually there. We're either acting as one of those solicitors. It takes a lot of people to get a campaign going. Yeah. So those are some of the things that top of mind come to my mind when I think about what we did for these people.
Any insight on like the insider, obviously you guys have been a part of building the community from the beginning. There's a smaller group of people at the beginning that kind of like had an impact for many generations. You guys have seen that and been a part of that. Do you have insight on that at all? As far as the Fergus Freemasons and that sort of.
No, I don't have a good idea. I have a good story about my wife's family in Aberdeen. Aberdeen is a pretty good sized town. It was 25,000 long ago. And there's a little town about 10 miles away you can get to by the train in those days. And my mother-in-law was up there with her husband and her other family members, and all of a sudden the Ku Klux Klan boys are there. And she looks on the shoes and says, "Doc, you should be ashamed of yourself." I guess she called her brother-in-law Doc, and he was one of the Ku Klux Klanners. This was in the 20s, I suppose. Huh. Maybe, yeah, I'm sure. But I don't remember the Freemasons around here.
There was no secret coffee clubs in Fergus.
I don't. We didn't participate in any of that sort of thing.
Fair enough. How about life? I mean, obviously you lived in Fergus your whole life, pretty much outside of college, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Any like stories of travel or some places that you went throughout the years? Well,
one place that's. Can we talk about Montana for a minute?
No, just kidding. We can talk about Montana.
My wife's dad homesteaded in Montana in the 1913 or 1915. He was from Aberdeen, and he had relatives in Whitefish, Montana, and they said, "Come out here to Montana. You just got your degree, your teaching degree in Aberdeen at the college there, and you can homestead land and teach, and you'll have a good place out here." So he did. And he went north of Libby, Montana, into the area called Yaak, Montana. He built a cabin, little cabin, big as the bathroom. And then he also built a school where he could teach. And this 160 acres became his. He didn't stay there for more than maybe 2 years of teaching. And you were supposed to work 5 years stay on the land, but he joined the Montana Regiment. This is before World War, the World War, and that time spent in the military counted. So this 160 acres became his. He went back to Aberdeen and started a family.
So, was there ties to Montana then? You spent some time
Well, that was
out there?
the tie. That was the tie. So now we own 160 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, and so there's a little cabin out there.
Inherited that land.
Yeah, and our kids, we took our kids. She used to go every year with her mother. Her dad died early, and Ann has taken us all out there ever since. So we've been out there.
So that's where you go hunting, out on that land?
No hunting. No? It's just relaxing out there.
Okay.
We could hunt, but what would we do that for at this age?
So when it comes to like travel, adventures, exploring places visited, Montana stands out.
It's
Anything
probably
else?
Head and shoulders above anything else we've done. Yeah.
Yep.
We've been to Florida a few times, but never stayed the winter. Yeah, we kind of like to struggle through Minnesota winters and summers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever been in trouble?
Trouble.
You ever been in trouble with the law, or like should have been in trouble?
No, I don't think
Besides
I've ever
catching
been
all
in
the walleye?
trouble with the law.
No, I had to ask. Figured I'd ask.
Well, maybe you could find something out about me, like the girl that's on the Federal Reserve Board. Dig a little deeper, and maybe you'll find something.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to dig. I guess any other stories that like stand out to you that you can think of from like childhood, family legacy stories, your career? Otherwise, I have some other reflective questions here, but I just don't want to miss anything from your childhood, or if you want to talk more about your relationships at all.
Yeah. Well, my youth and living in Fergus Falls all my life, I've done all these things that I did in high school or in wherever I was. I played golf, had time to shoot clay pigeons at the trap grounds, and every fall we'd go duck hunting and pheasant hunting, and took my son Paul out to South Dakota to pheasant hunt. So it was terrific times out there. Aberdeen was called the pheasant capital of the world But when I was growing up, you didn't have to go to Aberdeen. You could find all the pheasants you wanted here, between here and Wendell. So I've done all those things. Continue to do all those things.
So to sum up your life up until this point in a couple sentences, or like a couple thoughts.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Well, in the business, I think the idea is that you got to work hard and you got to solve problems, and then you can get an order. And the order is what you really want. And you want to be able to produce the order that you get. So, yeah, work hard. Keep your nose to the grindstone a little bit. Yep. Don't get too far away.
What about life advice?
Yeah, we're getting that's the section we're getting into here now. Yeah.
Sorry, Jake.
No, it's all good. We'll get into here reflections and wisdom here.
These are the hard things.
These are the harder ones. These are the harder ones.
I don't think I have come up with those answers.
Well, what about maybe if you want to get into your worldview, or how you developed what you believe in over the years, or what means a lot to you, and how maybe those beliefs came to be throughout your life.
Well, when you look at today's world, you don't realize how much your freedoms mean to you. The freedom to do things. I see on television the National Guardsmen in cities picking up people. That doesn't seem like the right thing for me. That's not what I was taught. And so it just seems really foreign to me, today's politics, and lack of respect for people.
So you talk about that a little more, political movements throughout your life, political shifts, political changes that you've witnessed throughout your life.
Well, my uncle, Bill, whose picture is on the dime.
Who is on the dime?
Who was it? Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Okay.
He said, "You want to see the American destroyer? And he'll give you a dime." Well, that was a different time, because he had liberal attitudes, and that's when the golf course got built with federal money.
Huh.
And he thought, in those days, people thought you pull your own self up by your own bootstraps, and if you couldn't do that, well, there is welfare, but he didn't believe in that too much. But I grew up with Social Security being something that we live with, and that we have, and Medicare, and I think that being able to take care of yourself and your doctor and your medical health, I think it's probably something that we deserve, and it's not something that you have to do on your own. So that's one of the things, and I didn't really think about that much until lately, when they start to take it away.
Interesting, yeah. What about and maybe how it all ties into your values, but what about faith and religion, and how that played into a role throughout your life?
Well, I've been a Christian all my life. I used to sing in the church choir when I could. I had a voice that could carry a little bit, but all these institutions that we've supported over the years and helped fundraise for are all Christian groups, and I certainly feel about, well, except for the Center for the Arts probably, but the rest of them, Pioneer Care, the YMCA, they're all Christian groups, and so we feel strongly about the ability to worship and be free to do that.
So outside of obviously politics, religion, and you kind of skirt on that, and maybe you don't have to share necessarily where you land politically exactly, but do you feel like you've witnessed a shift in the way that the country operates overall and has been run since you were a kid? I mean, you had some big events in your life throughout the 60s and 70s with money changing and all of that with silver and gold. And I don't, but I'm just curious about the big political shift changes that you've witnessed.
Well, I read a book recently about Rudy Perpich that Ben Shire wrote, and when Perpich was governor of the state of Minnesota, I didn't think he was the greatest thing in the world, but after you read that book, you kind of realize that he had a lot of points that made a lot of sense. He was the first guy to get women into leadership positions. He said, half of the state is women, so they should at least be half in the government too, which makes a lot of sense. It's today, now some people say women shouldn't even have the right to vote. Well, some churches around this community didn't give the women a right to vote until maybe 30 years ago. So, I mean, I understand that problem, but it's so not very enlightened, I don't think.
What about technology shifts? We talked about obviously in the printing industry, but any insights on overall technology shifts that you've seen?
Well, the business, of course, has been inundated by technology changes, and going from hot metal to offset to down digital. But in 2000, Y2K, people were really worried about the year 2000 because the computers didn't have 2.0 plugged into it. So we sold a lot of stuff just based on that, But it was it's been just dramatic. The use of computers by our customers, they don't need to use forms anymore. I mean, very little, because everything can come off the computer. So we're in this business of creating business forms, and here technology is screwing us up again.
You want to try and get that one? We'll get it.
We won't reach it, but it's the light's okay on here. It just will have to adjust.
Okay.
I mean, these won't match the other lighting, but it'll be up.
Yeah. All right. How about pride and regret? Those are two fun words. But when you think of that, your most proud moments, or the things you're most proud of in this life, what comes to mind?
Well, I'm mostly proud of my kids who have done well in their own ways, and I think you don't really get much better than pride in your family. So I think that's the most things that I'm proud of are that. I'm most proud to be able to visit my kids, and they still want to see me. So that's a nice thing. And right now, I talked about Montana a little bit, and they won't let Ann and I go out there alone. So we have to have them along. So they're all anxious to go. So that's a wonderful thing too. Proud of that.
How about regrets? Anything that stands out where you're like, man, I really wish I would have done that different?
As far as regrets go in the world, there's got to be a few here and there. But they don't stand out in my life. The only regret I have today is that I can't go up on a ladder anymore. That's a bad thing for a person with bad knees in old age, because there's not much recovery if you fall.
Maybe you regret not doing a few more leg extensions or some squats or something.
Yeah, getting rid of the belly fat.
Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good if you don't have any lingering regrets. What about like challenges or tragedies? Obviously, you touched on losing your dad. You lost, I know you're the only sibling left right now, so you've seen a lot of people go. And you can get into as much as you want or sharing about some of the challenges and tragedies that you faced throughout your life.
The longer you live, and the longer you outlive everybody else in your family, the harder it is, because there's nobody else to ask what was that? What you used to do? There's nobody else to ask. I used to be able to ask my brother that. He died back in 2020. So that's a regret, You live too old. You outlive your siblings. But I was the youngest. I suppose I'm supposed to be that way, right? I'm supposed to outlive the rest of them. I haven't figured that out yet, though. But, going forward, you just hope that the kids can continue on and find their own way and keep this little business going. And I'm sure Paul will figure it out because he's a smart boy.
That's right.
All right. How about advice for future generations? You've got to have some good years of advice stored away there.
Well, most of the advice is do what your mother told you to do. It's the best advice people need to take. But, I've got 3 grandkids, and those are the only ones that look up to me a little bit, now, because they're hardly, Ingrid's 26 or 7. But anyway, I just encourage them to do what they want to do. Don't do anything that they don't want to do in life. And there's too many things that, people can tell you to do too many things that aren't right for you. And I just think they have to learn. They've learned a lot by by trial and error, but they got to learn to do what they like to do. So people need to learn just to do what they feel good about.
I love that. Ryan, any other thoughts? Any other questions?
I don't.
No?
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Buzz, I just have one more for you here. If you could just sum up, kind of put a cap on it, summarize maybe what we talked about with your life and with the company, just to kind of give us a nice cap on everything here at the end. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Well, it's been a pleasure to be able to visit with you guys and go over my life story. And my life is entwined with my family, but with my business, and it's all kind of goes together. One thing leads to the other. When you're in a family business, you learn from your family, you learn from some of your mistakes and some of the things you did right, and you just hope that everybody will carry on and keep the business going.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. You have a lot to be proud of, Buzz. You do.
Well, I'm glad you guys showed up today.
Absolutely.
In force. Holy smokes.
Absolutely.
Well, I hope I haven't wasted your time.
Absolutely not. I really appreciate it and respect your willingness to do this.